Hi, I'm Sarah Baker. Welcome to Mama Stories. I created Mama Stories after seeing how impactful sharing stories can be in overcoming the challenges of motherhood. I am where I am today because of the stories of so many amazing, strong mamas. And I want to share that with anyone I can. So follow along to laugh, cry, and be empowered. Welcome to the show. Today we have Brandy. Brandy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be on this forum. You're doing some great work, sharing some diverse amount of motherhood stories. So I'm glad I am getting to add to that.
Yeah. Well, I know I found you on Instagram and instantly
hmm
had my connection. We were just talking about that.
Yep.
Um, so for those of us who don't know Brandy, why don't you give us a little intro, like who you are?
Yeah. So my name is Brandy Wells, and um, professionally, I'm a childhood family therapist. I'm licensed here in Ohio, and I reside in Columbus, Ohio. I've been doing work with children and families impacted by mental health for over a decade. Throughout that process, I had started to have children, and now I have three daughters. Kennedy, who is 12, she's almost 13. Can't believe she's going to be a teenager.
Mm,
I have a 5-year old, and I have a almost 2-year old who I raised with my husband, who I met in college. He was a collegiate athlete, and now he's an attorney. And we're raising these girls while still raising ourselves, honestly. And, we're doing the best that we can do. And, all the things that I'm teaching families and children around, I'm trying to do that within my household and just parent differently and consciously for the betterment of our future. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell, I guess.
and I feel like that basically sums up why I found your page and was like, I have to have her on the show because you were talking, you did this post that was about being 12 and like what 12
Yes.
was for your daughter.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and as I dug a little deeper, I just love the way you talk about parenting from like a conscious point. And you actually shared
Mhm.
recently like what that actually was.
Yes.
You had a
Yes.
little video that was talking about like really what conscious parenting meant. So could you
Mhm.
share a little bit about what that is and how you implement that?
Yeah, I mean, so, as I was kind of traveling through my motherhood journey, there were things that I was doing that was pretty habitual. I think we parent from a way that our parents raise us. That's our framework. I always say, like, when I birthed children, it didn't come with a manuscript.
Mm,
I just did what was natural,
yeah.
but natural isn't always what's best.
Mm,
And I was learning and educating myself through my job about these things that were foreign to me. I was talking to families and children doing things that I didn't remember, my mother or father doing, not because um, they didn't care to do it, but it's because I don't think they just knew. And I was like, this is pretty radical. This is doing the good work. These are creating children without feeling um, tired and frustrated and burnt out of parenting. And so, really, parenting consciously is just thinking about what are you doing as a mother? Does it render the best results? Am I parenting from a place that is nasty, that doesn't feel good for anyone involved? And should I do something different? And so that's what I did. I was learning things and said, I want to do something different because this doesn't feel good to me. These natural practices that I was doing, it didn't feel right. And so now when raising my daughters, I have to think about what am I doing so that they can be healthy adults. Because our children are they're little for such a short amount of time in retrospect. Like we're raising children in a small amount of time, but they're adults for a long time. And it's important as parents and caregivers, we're the foundation. And so we have to really create um, better humans. That starts when they're young, prenatal, when they're babies, really thinking about what am I doing so that they are the best humans that they can be.
Yeah. So when you had, that's amazing, by the way. I'm sitting over here like
Thanks.
taking notes for myself. So when you had your first daughter, who's now 12, how
Yes.
long into this motherhood journey were you like, wait a second, this is off? Or did it start when you were pregnant or before?
Actually, I when I share my story, Kennedy was like a direct reflection of my education. I had her right when I left undergrad, and when I had her, that's when I began to really learn some of the material in which I share,
Mm,
but I didn't do it right in the beginning. I was doing things that, again, just felt natural. And the more that I learned, the more I was able to give to her. And it wasn't until, and this is a continuation, like this doesn't stop. I'm always growing, always learning new things. And
yeah.
sometimes I go back. I go back to what feels good, that comfort zone, right? Like sometimes I do get triggered and I scream and I yell and I do things that don't feel good, but you know, um it's been a journey. She is my um kind of my clay. It's through her that really kind of empowered me to be the mom that I am today.
Mm,
She's almost been like my not my practice dummy in a bad way, but just a kid that I had to mold. And so she gets to see different pieces of me. She gets to see her mom grow into who she is. I think she finds it rewarding to see that I changed, that I
mm-hmm.
got better. So it's a continuation, it's developing, but um, definitely, it's just a journey.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really good point of like, sometimes we take step backs. We take a step
Mm-hmm.
back. And I think that
Sorry.
giving moms that space to do that is really important.
Uh-huh.
Be-
Yeah, you're right.
because if we continuously say like, "Oh, don't do it like that again. Don't do it like that again," or we
Uh-huh.
say like, "That's bad. This is good." And then when we step back into that bad space and we feel so low, I think it doesn't give us the momentum to step back into the space we want to be in. Be-
Right, right.
because we're so down on ourselves. And you actually posted something about positive self-talk and how like
Mm-hmm.
deep breaths and good positive self-talk is really
Oh,
important. And
yes.
I will tell you, I struggle with that to a max. Like that's what I'm working on right now is just being more kind to myself. Like, and
Yes.
we get so wrapped up in it. It comes like you don't even know you're doing it sometimes.
Yeah,
And then all of
yeah.
a sudden I'm like, gosh, that was not very nice. Like I would never say
Yeah.
that to my sister or to my mom or
Mm-hmm.
why am I
Mm-hmm.
saying it to me?
Yeah. 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 Taking a moment to pause. I
Yeah.
think we, especially as parents, our engine runs fast and you don't stop. I think that's why mindfulness is so beautiful because it really forces you to just appreciate the here and now and take moments to have like those gratitude moments where you can sit and say, I'm doing the best that I can. I did it. I accomplished this one thing. I did just really some self reflection. And I think we don't always have time for that because we're go, 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 go. And we're just getting through our day to get these responsibilities done instead of just appreciating what we already have done.
Yeah.
So those moments of pause just kind of keep you in check. You're able to be like, okay, stop, let me take a deep breath. Let me do something. Let me get my cup of coffee. Let me do whatever I need to do to get back on kilter. So
Yeah.
those things are important because when we're raising children, we can't do that if we're not our best self. You just can't. Healthy parents raise healthy children. Period.
Yeah. And where do you think like an everyday mom? Obviously, your work lends you
Mhm.
to this like almost like you have to seek this knowledge because you're
Mhm.
helping people in this situation. But where do you think other moms could go to find that information themselves?
Um, you said where can parents find that information themselves?
Yeah, like do you suggest that they go see a professional, or is it something that like meditating or pause, that stuff
You
gets
know,
it? Or
yeah, I mean, I think what you where you should start is always literature. I think that that's a great baseline. You know what I mean? Um, I think that there's some great books that can be a great starting point. One of my favorite books is The Conscious Parent, obviously. Um,
hmm,
and because it teaches some of those foundational practices. If you think obviously that there's some atypical things that you're experiencing, things that are beyond your control, or things that you really need a mediator or someone to say, is this wrong? It's never too bad to go to a professional and see, okay, is there more? Can I be doing more? But I think just starting at a good baseline, doing just getting on Google, looking up things, researching things. I love articles because they're small bits of information.
yeah,
So I always check the source, right? Like, is this a credible site? Like the Child Mind Institute, the Gottman Institute, those places where they're really doing a lot of research and evidence, and they have these great forums that just share tidbits of information. You take that information, adapt it to your life, or challenge yourself to look at things differently. If you're still struggling and you consistently are struggling, I absolutely take it to a next step.
hmm,
And that's okay, because then that professional can say, you know what, it's not atypical. This is very normal. But start with just absorbing information, sitting with other mothers, listening to their experiences, listening to how things are going for them, to say, am I doing this alone? Is this just odd, or are other women experiencing some of these same things? Are other parents experiencing some of these same things?
yeah. I It's funny how many times we do stuff as parents, and oftentimes I say as moms, but I do want to make sure I cast a wider net because there is other people involved. But
Yes, yes.
um, we do things and we think it's just us, and so
Mhm.
we do it in isolation. And a lot of that
Mhm.
times it's maybe deeper things that naturally some people just don't share out loud, which I understand
Right.
there's a space for some of that, but even just like the basic things of like how we manage everything that we're
Yep.
doing, or
Yep.
how we handle things, or how we take deep breaths, or
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
just don't share that, or we
Yeah.
don't give gain that knowledge because of the lack of sharing. I think because
Yeah.
we're so fearful that we're doing it wrong or something's wrong
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah. And let's be honest, we live in a very judgmental world. I
Yes.
mean, when you put yourself out there, you are giving yourself permission to have ridicule, to be put into a position to be bullied or to be shamed. And so a lot of that is because we fear that repercussion. I'm not going to share something of vulnerability, especially some of my toughest weak moments, because I want to show you the best pieces. Just like when we first got on the phone, you're like, I love your, Instagram. It's such a beautiful reflection, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
share some of the nastiest pieces, because I fear that people don't want to hear that. But
Yeah.
I think just like that 12-year-old post that I wrote, so many women after I posted that were like, "Oh my God, you lifted a huge weight off my shoulder," because we forget that, like, other people we're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling this in isolation. Like, usually when I'm feeling, there's someone in this world who's feeling the exact same way, or can relate to that. And so when I wrote that post, it was vulnerable to say, you know what, 12 is hard. I'm having such a hard time raising my teenage daughter. But there was so much beauty that came from that, because so many women were like, me too. Oh my God, this is not abnormal. You just have to be brave. You have to be brave enough to share yourself, but you also have to be brave enough to set boundaries that keep something sacred for you and your family. So you have to just have a great balance and knowing which is helpful and what needs to be kept to yourself. You know, there are some
Yeah.
things that we want to hold to ourselves, and that's okay because we don't have to share all the pieces of us.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really good point of like knowing your space, knowing your tribe, your community,
Yes.
or whatever that you want to
Mhm.
um, kind of go down those tough roads with, and then what roads do you want to share publicly. Like, I totally get that. I think that
Yeah.
unfortunately for me, I don't know if this is for everyone else, I've always had to learn that the hard way. Like, I've always
Yeah.
had to give a little, and then I'm like, oof, I do not like what you did with that, so now I'm
Yeah.
not going to give you anymore. And so
I,
maybe over time that might make people like revert into
yeah.
this, like, I'm not going to share anything
Yeah.
type
You're
of
right.
mentality, because it's hard to find people that you trust right off the bat.
Yeah. And
It's hard.
you have to be okay with like the small group that gets it because I'll tell you like I share some very vulnerable moments in my life, and not everyone agrees or finds a position in that because it doesn't resonate with them. But for the small bunch who do, for the 5 to 10 people who say, "Girl, I felt that," that's enough for me. Sometimes it's not even about anyone else; it's about me. Like
Yeah.
I'm not doing it for a purpose of trying to be relatable, but just to get it off of my chest. Um, if you find it challenging or you're interested in it, take it in. If not, pass by it. That's okay. That's the beauty of social media. You don't have to like it. You don't have to have that information, but it's there for you. But really, it's for me.
Yeah.
And when you put the power back into your hands like that, like this is for me. I'm putting this out there because it means something to me. It makes the response less valuable.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I actually am like knee deep in that right now, because I when I edit these episodes, I have to listen to myself talk. And luckily I don't have to do a lot of editing, but I do listen to it again just in case there's something I forgot that needed to be removed or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it is so hard because I'm like, wow, well, one, I'm not like some like master interviewer, and that's why I started this. I started this because I was seeking some healing, and through it I've learned I've got a lot of healing to do of things I thought
Yeah.
I was kind of over, or things I thought I had gone past. And so when I listen to myself talk, I am again, it's that like negative talk of what's happening.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
have to keep reminding myself, like, this is not for me. Like, this, I am doing this for me from a healing of
Yeah.
my own, but this is for my son. This is for the women I, have on. This is for the women that hear it and are changed and feel like they're a part of a community. And so I
Yeah.
have to keep reminding myself, like, okay, it's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily, I'm not to a place where people give me bad feedback, but God forbid if my, like, someone picks up the podcast from,
Yeah.
who knows where, and it starts to go down that way. I'm very hesitant towards that. I don't want,
Yeah.
because I'm nervous of that response, of that,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
these women are being vulnerable, I'm being vulnerable. And then it's like, oof, ouch, if somebody wants to come in and try to squash that.
Yeah. And we are our own worst critics. Like we think the worst of ourselves. I don't think people care that much. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think that we have a certain we hold ourselves at such high prestige and we almost just get in our heads. We get in our own way. And so that takes practice, like stopping yourself, like physically or just mentally stopping yourself from saying those things that keep you hindered. I think those things almost do that to keep us hindered, to make us not be able to stretch ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we often tell ourselves things because we're putting that self-doubt and fear in ourselves when really when you take yourself beyond that, you push past that, is when you really find out how much you can accomplish. If you would have kept yourself from not starting a podcast, if you would have told yourself, my voice sounds like this, these things people don't want to hear, then we wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to connect. You
Yeah.
had to stretch yourself. You had to say, okay, I have to just put myself out there.
Yeah.
And then what comes for that is beauty. Like you get to see like, okay, I can do this. Like, okay, my voice may sound like that to me, but people want to hear it. And it feels good because then you get to do the next big thing, the next big challenge.
Mm.
So
Man, I'm in for like a coaching session tonight. I like
that's what
this.
I do. That's what I do.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I am here for this. That's I love it. Thank you.
You're
You're right though.
welcome.
It is that. And I think that, I mean, we could go on for hours about how women are raised and, you
Yeah.
know, what those self-doubts actually mean and where they come
Yep.
from. And you posted something again on your Instagram today about like how we are the product of our parents. And so we
Yeah.
have to remember that there are things about us that are
Hmm.
either self-taught or
Yep.
created in the womb, whatever. And so we have to face that. We can't just push that
Hmm.
aside and act like that didn't get passed to us. It is passed to
Yeah.
us. So how do we overcome that? And so it's so many things, all of
Yeah.
it, and it just is a lot of self work, I guess. We
It
gotta
is.
go down that path.
Yeah, you got to be a change seeker, a cycle breaker. You just got to want more for yourself. You got to, me wanting more for myself came in conjunction of me birthing children because I was like, they're pushing me to want the best for myself because I
Hmm.
really want the best for them. And I can't really want the best for my children if I don't want the best for myself.
Yeah.
Like, that I have to model what I want for them. And a lot of that is self love and self esteem. And I didn't have that. And so they forced me to do that because they're looking at me like, show me how to do it, mom.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to love myself? How am I supposed to, hold myself um, up there? And I had to do it. I had to show them. And it's been beautiful because I feel so much better now because I am investing in me.
Hmm.
Um, and it reaps such positive consequences.
Yeah. So good. I thank you again. Really. I mean, for anybody who's not following you, I feel like they're doing themselves a disservice because every time I pull up my Instagram and you're on there, I'm like, oh, what does she got to say today? Like, I gotta start thinking about
Man,
this.
I like to post things that are so most interesting to me. Like when I'm posting those things and people are in shock or just are like so like surprised or challenged or it's thought provoking, I'm right there with you. Like, oh
Mm,
my God, I saw this piece of information. I have to share this. I'm such an information giver. I
yeah,
can't sit with things for myself. It's like if I'm not sharing this, what's it for? Like if I
yeah,
can't give you this information, I don't want to be great by myself. I don't want to do motherhood by myself. I
yeah,
don't want to go through these hurdles and these successes by myself. I want to go with I want to go with you. I want you to be beside me. I want you to be winning with me because we are so much stronger when we're together. We just are.
yeah, for sure. Agreed. And I was, reading something the other day about, or no, I wasn't reading anything. It was on, where did I see that at? Oh, the Super Bowl commercials. Jeez, my
Yeah.
brain. Um, Mom life right there. I can't even think of it.
That's okay.
But it was talking about how there was like space for all of us, women
Mhm.
primarily. And I do think that's a really crucial thing for motherhood is like there is space for all moms to do motherhood how they do it. And
Yes.
it's okay to do that, but like let's do it together. Like just because
Yeah.
you maybe over sanitize and I never wash hands cuz whatever the reasons, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Or if you're
Yeah.
organic and I'm not, or you play outside and I don't, like whatever it is, like let's just do it together and be okay with the differences because we don't want to do that alone. We're not supposed to.
No. And I think like there's this natural competitiveness amongst women. And I'm not always going to blame that on like an individual woman. I think that's rooted in a selective amount of opportunities being given to women. I
Yes.
think that because we're always in a position where there's not a majority of women in things, that we feel like we have to be better than the next because there's only one spot anyway. You know what I mean? Kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And so now I think this is getting better, as far as sisterhood, because what women are discovering is that we are stronger together. We can build together. When we build together, things flourish because women are the best. Like,
Yeah.
we can do it, and we don't have to feel like there only has to be one of us. There's room enough for all of us because we all do have those individual stories. No story is alike. What you have to share to your community is so different from what I have to share. And there may be overlap,
Yeah.
but we say it in different, having different points or different viewpoints. I'm different from you. We all come with our different experiences, backgrounds that make us who we are. And so we all have something to share. And no one can take that from you. Like,
Yeah.
no one can take your destiny from you.
Yeah.
So it's it's beautiful when we can connect and feed off of one another, um, because great things happen. Great things happen.
Agreed. And I'll tell you, when I started this journey, anytime I would pull up Instagram or Apple Podcasts, and it would be like this mom podcaster or this mom podcaster. And I think, gosh, there's kind of a lot of them. Like, maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't do this. Like,
Mhm.
maybe she's, this one's already telling stories and this one's already doing something for moms. And then
Mhm.
as I listened to him, I was like, but wait a second. Like, the people I interview have never been on a podcast before. So there's so
Right.
many more stories to tell, and like, let's give space for everyone to do that. And
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter who's doing it or how many people. Like, I guess it kind of
Mhm.
goes back to your other comment before about how you got to do it for you. And so if you're
Yes.
doing it for you, it doesn't matter how many more people are doing it or what's the percentage of successful this. And I do think it's
Yeah.
ingrained in us. And I think your comment about just there being lack of space for women as we've entered into this world, whether it be in sports or whether it be in your
Yes.
career, all
Mhm.
these places, it makes us fight for that one spot. That's
Yeah.
There's only one usually.
Yeah, yeah, there is. But
Man,
there's beauty in connection. And I think now that we have platforms like Instagram and Facebook and all the other social media, it shows us the power in connection. And there's so many people in this world. There are so many humans, to think that every human is only going to be selected for a certain person. Like, your story can hit thousands of people, and there's still thousands of people waiting to hear different messages. Like,
yeah,
when I talk to people, there's a lot of mental health forums online, especially with mental health being just such a hot topic. I think it's just everybody is just interested in it, and it's just very engaging conversations. And start sharing my story, and I'm talking to people from different countries and across the world. And I'm thinking, there's so many connections to be made. Like, there's so many of us that are walking on this earth. Someone wants to hear you. A group of people probably want to hear you. And again, what's for you is for you. No one can take that
mm-hmm,
away from you.
yeah,
No one can take what is out there that is for you and in your plan. They can't. That it's not something that can be grabbed. It belongs to you.
yeah, for sure. Oh man, I'm feeling on cloud nine right now, Brandy. This
That's
is
how I
like
want you to feel.
this is what I needed. Okay, let's I do want to transition this into the 12 post
Yes.
because I thought what you wrote was so beautiful, and I can pull it up if you want me to reread it, but just walk us through, like, in your words, like what is 12? Like what are you experiencing? What are you anxious about?
Yeah, so I was online and I think I was looking up, and this is pretty funny because I'm a therapist, but I really feel like when you're parenting your own children, my therapist hat goes off, and it's like it's a different it's a different experience.
Mhm.
And so I think I was online and I was just researching like best practices for parenting teenagers. And I had ran across this article, and the mom was sharing how 12 was difficult. And she had shared how hard it was for her. And I seen her words, and I was so inspired by them because it made me realize that 12-year-olds are special because it's just such a transitional period for children. You
Mhm.
know, when we think about children, I think about them in a very developmental way. And so I think about infants, toddlers, preschoolers, school age, middle school, and then young adults. And when I think about middle school age children, young adolescents, I think about how much change is going. They're not so little anymore, and they're really trying to find out who they are in the world before they become young adults. And especially with me, I have daughters, so she, her menstrual cycle and her mood and
Mhm.
discovering who she was and pushing me away and friendships and social life and phones and tech and all these things. And I try to really just sum up what what is 12. And then I thought, what was 12 for me? Because sometimes I'm like, is my child just crazy? Like, is she just crazy? And then I sit back and I think, oh my God, who was I at 12? That was me. It was a different take,
Yeah.
but a lot of her storyline was the same as mine. I did a lot of rebellious things, pushing my mother away, attitude, dramatic, like just that over the top laughter, wanting to be on my own sometimes, thinking I had it all figured out. That was me. And so I said, let me share that because when I don't know a lot of teenage moms, but I can't be the only one knowing that 12 feels different.
Yeah.
12 is so different.
Mm.
Um, and 12 was different for so many people because everyone was like, oh my God, 12 is different. And I thought
Mm.
this has to be a transitional piece for them. They are literally shifting in their bodies. Their mind, bodies, and spirits are literally going through a change.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the other side though. Like I feel like I'm in the thick of it and we're swimming, 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 but I can't wait to see what's on the other side when the storms calm, when she returns, all the things that she's been working on feel better for her when she has figured it out a little bit. Because I know it's going to be good, which is why I'm really trying to be patient during this process,
Mm.
trying to really check myself and how I react and how I'm bringing attention to things and providing her with support and and putting her in safe spaces because I know that work is going to be so necessary for the afterwards. Like I'm so excited to see where she takes off.
Do you think
Um,
it'll be when she's 13 or do you think it'll be longer than that or when are you anticipating a
oh,
calm?
well, you know what? I don't know when the calm is. You would ask my mom, and she probably still feels like I'm still going through it. But I don't think we ever stop being parents. I think I'm always going to parent her. I think I'm always going to worry for her. I'm always going to want more for her. Um, there's going to be moments. I think parenthood has its ebbs and flows. I think that there's very high moments. There's still moments in her life now where I'm very proud. Like I know her core is good. She's a great person. Um, there's moments I'm watching her if it's on the volleyball court or she's surrounded by friends or she's on the phone and she says something that is showing her leadership and kindness. I get those sparks of joy. And I know that the work that I'm doing is working. And then there's really low moments where we are not our best selves and things are difficult. But I try to take, again, like you said, those moments of pause and gratitude to say that yesterday she showed me a moment of joy. I'm going
Mm,
to stick with that. I'm going to hold on to that because I know it's there. And those things carry me through. They let me know that there is light. There's not always going to be our kids make mistakes constantly. That's part of growing. That has to just become part of the process.
yeah.
So I'm not looking for like a specific endpoint. I'm just going to grab on to the highs and be riding out the lows.
Mm.
So,
I think that's so good. You know, when I don't know if you know, but when I started this journey, I had when I became a mom, I experienced postpartum depression. And it's funny
mm,
because when you're, that part's not funny. Let me be very clear. When you become pregnant, people give you all the tips, all the advice, all the,
oh yeah,
oh, the terrible twos and oh, this and oh, that. And then I just feel like I never really heard about postpartum depression. I remember
yeah,
I got a pamphlet when I left the hospital about it, and
hmm,
that was really it. And so I thought it was just me. Like I thought, oh, I'm
mm,
not cut out for this, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And as over time I started to learn, oh, no, motherhood's just hard. And
yeah,
that was a storm I had to pass through. And honestly, like I said earlier in this episode, I am still doing a lot of healing from that because it was really dark. And
hmm,
there's things that when I'm in conversation with moms that they say, and I get triggered and I think, okay, that's not them, that's me. That's because that was
hmm,
the experience I had, and I have to pull myself back. Um, so this journey for sure has brought me a lot of healing with that. But the one question I've continuously had is like, what are the other equivalents of these like storms you have to pass through as a mom? So there's like the newborn storm, right? And then there's the,
hmm,
they say the twos and the threes are really hard. And then I feel like after that, there's not really a lot of discussion about these like quote unquote storms or these
hmm,
transitions or seasons to go through. It kind of just like all
hmm,
blends together.
yeah,
So I think you taking some time to articulate that is so important because for me specifically, as I will have a 12-year-old at some point,
yeah,
at least knowing that, okay, I really got to prepare myself now for these bigger things ahead that
absolutely,
can be really detrimental if you're not ready for it. If you're not
yeah,
in it being like, okay, here I come armed with whatever it is, good self talk,
yep,
information, self
yep,
healing. Because I wish I would have known all of this going into motherhood. Like, I don't know what my experience could have been like if I would have had prepared myself better for
uh,
this potential postpartum depression
yeah,
and been able to arm myself with information and community and just understanding that this was going to happen.
yeah,
Like, what else can we prepare for?
yeah. I mean, postpartum depression. I think even when you're trying to be best prepared for that, when you're experiencing it, um, even the best equipped people don't feel ready to go through that storm because it hits you and it is so abnormal and it literally stops you in your tracks and it makes you feel dark. And
Mm-hmm.
it's in a time when you're really trying to feel light. And
Mm,
so it is tough. Some storms we go through, we just got to go through it without knowing the things. We just experience it. And there's nothing that can really get you prepared for that other than just going through it and knowing that you can get through it. Um, I had a miscarriage,
mm,
and I think I felt similar to you in a way that, like, I didn't really hear people talking about that. It was one of those like, I don't think that's ever going to happen to me. I had two children. Why would I have a miscarriage kind of ordeal? And when I had my miscarriage, I felt so alone because I
mm,
hadn't. really heard those stories.
Yeah.
I had shared when going through that process a story of my miscarriage, and again, that vulnerability allowed for other women to share how dark they had felt in those moments, and didn't feel like that was normal, and didn't think that they should process that. Again, I think that's our some of our sacrecy. I think that those are cliche topics that women aren't always brave enough to share because they show
Mm-hmm.
the weaker parts of us. And
Mm.
we as women are always trying to be strong and hold it together, and we can do all the things, and
Mm-hmm.
we can persevere, and like, but it's not. It's a lot of ugliness. It's a lot of crying in the bathroom on the toilet. It's a lot of, not wanting to get out of bed. It's a lot of, I don't feel like parenting right now, and I don't know if I love my kid, and it's a lot of moments that are hard. Um and so I think the more we can share that, we can we can equip parents with knowing that, first of all, it's not normal,
Mm-hmm.
and that you can get through it. There's light. It doesn't. It's You're going to constantly be in recovery, because that was a natural piece of you, but there is light at the end. As far as just
Mm-hmm.
preparing for other parts of childhood, I used to say I thought that what we consider the terrible twos. I don't like to call them that, but I thought that was the hardest moment in parenting. Like, there can't be anything more harder than that. And then I got to my preteen, and I was like, no, this is hard. This is tough. Because you're really, really trying to cultivate young adults. You can really see them transforming into future people, like future humans. And so this has been the toughest for me. But what I will say is that the more habitual you can be in your practices as they are young, the more groundwork you do, the more foundational work you do that first 5 years of life, when you are at 12, you will feel more prepared to do the work because you've been practicing. It's
Mm-hmm.
now a habit. Me having positive self talk is now a habit. I just do it. Me taking a pause is now a habit. I just know how to do it. If you start something when they're 12, that can be hard to get used to. But if you start something when your child is 2, then when your child is 12, you feel like I can do some of the things that I've been practicing. So I think the more we try to do the work in the beginning, the easier it is when they're older, but you still have those moments that you're going to have to. I mean, reality is nothing prepares you for reality but reality. So
Yeah.
um, sometimes you just got to tough through it. You got to get through it. And you're going to be low, and you're going to have low
Mm-hmm.
moments. Um, but again, having moments of gratitude, having moments where you're like, you know what? I got through the terrible twos. I got through meltdowns. My kid, doing this and that. I know that I can get through something else. I know there's light at the end of this.
Well, I would say the one thing about becoming a mom that I have learned is that moms are really strong. I
Yes.
didn't learn like how I did learn how strong I was through community, but
Mm-hmm.
through just like getting to know mom's stories. I mean, the things that moms go through to become moms, go through after they're moms, and then they just walk around and wear this crown of motherhood like it's super
Yep.
easy. And I realize it's not that it is easy, it's just that they're really strong. They're just tough. They can
Yeah.
get through
Yeah.
it. And so
Yeah.
I have to remember I'm one of them too, and I can get
Yeah.
through it. I can do
Yeah.
it.
We are strong, and it's okay to sometimes be weak. And I think that's what's hard, because t- we are raised to have this armor. Um, and so when we do have moments of weakness, it's so hard on us because we're never taught that it's okay also to be weak. It's
Hmm.
okay to feel sad. It's okay to not be your best.
Yeah.
That is normal in life, in every human's life. We have highs and we have lows. And so we are only strong if we experience weak moments. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's okay. There is beauty in pain. There is beauty in the vulnerable, most you know, intimate moments of ourselves. There is beauty in that.
Yeah, and I would say, vulnerability is a strength. And so
Yes.
when you can feel weak and when you can feel the hardship and you can share and be honest about that, to me, I feel like that's already a step in recovery and whatever tragedy or, grief that you're walking through because
Yeah.
you can be so strong to share that.
Yeah. And I think everybody process is different. I think
Yeah.
me being vulnerable or women like you being brave enough to share some of those vulnerable pieces is how we process and um, how we find strength. I think some women, if they journal, if they write, if they dance, if they do things that are a alternative to their expression and the way they process, that's beauty too.
Yeah.
Um, Everybody doesn't have to be someone who shares, um, but it's your responsibility to do the healing in the way that fits you.
Yeah.
Um, and that's cool. So I respect even women who are just showing up and going to work out or, hanging out with friends or doing things that make them feel good.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I
so
think that's a good clarification of like being vulnerable and sharing doesn't mean
mhm.
you host a podcast or you
Yep.
become an influencer on Instagram. Like that's not that's not vulnerability. That's a place for vulnerability to be
Yeah.
alive. But
Mhm.
being vulnerable is like what you're saying, like writing it down, being honest with yourself. Like
Mhm.
this is hard for me. I need to get
Yes.
through this. I need to work on this. I need to get past
Yes.
this. Like vulnerability doesn't have to be a platform. Vulnerability is
Yeah.
just an action that you take with yourself of
Yeah. Releasing
realizing,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
like this is hard. I'm going to go through this.
Mhm. Mhm. It's like a self awakening. I call those moments like when you're able to just. It is so hard to sit with yourself, especially like the ugly pieces of you. Like if
Mhm.
you just, it's just hard to sit in silence and really look internally because we're just so used to external and like feeding other people's needs and wants, and it's rare that we just sit with our needs and wants. And
Mhm.
so it does take vulnerability. It takes you doing things that are different and maybe you didn't witness. I remember, not seeing my mother, and maybe she did, but she didn't share it with me being vulnerable.
Mhm.
Um, but I knew that that would be a release for me, that I had to change that because I want my daughters to also find strength in being vulnerable.
Mhm.
Um, so really showing them too, like what does that look like? When I don't feel my best self, mom sometimes needs to take a time out. Sometimes mom needs to go and do the things that help me feel good, just like
Mhm.
you guys do. Um, so that they can also live with those practices and know that that is normal, and you should do that for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think I know there's like a big plug right now about self-care and all of
Yes.
that, but I mean really instead of making it a hashtag, we got to take that seriously and
Mhm.
know that it's okay to like ask for help and to tap out. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and I say this and I still do it, where I'm exhausted, there's like a load of laundry to be switched over, I'm in the middle of making dinner. I can barely like think about singing the 10 bedtime songs to my son. Like all this stuff is happening and I could just easily be like, "You know what? I need help. I need a break. I need whatever." And instead I like persevere. It's like, "Look at me. I
Mhm.
can do all the things." And it's like, "Okay, well, it's not a badge of honor to wear when you're tired and you're frustrated and you're taking that out on your 2-year-old who wants the 10 bedtime songs. It's like,
Right.
be open and honest to say, I need help, I need a break, so that you can show up better for your babies, or show up better for yourself and for your
Yeah,
partner, or whatever it is that, you're trying to show up for in your life.
that's right. You got it. I mean, I love the self-care hashtag. I love that people are valuing themselves and doing some things, but I think there's a clear um, distinction between self-care and self-love.
Mm,
Because if you love yourself and you want the best for yourself, then you're going to ensure that self-care is in your routine, because you can do things like go get your nails done, go get your hair done, go shopping, go on trips, but those things aren't fulfilling you,
mm,
um, because you're just replacing, you're just, trying to search for moments, when really the beauty is in the realizing just how much you value yourself. Because if I value myself and I want the best for me, then that's going to come with me, eating well, working out, doing things that make me, that I want to do because I love me.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so self love creates moments for self care.
I think it's a great way to look at that. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, well, I'm stealing that, because I think that that's, well, I think it's like the best way I've heard it, because I was just talking with a mom the other day about kind of like romanticizing self care. Like, it
Yes.
usually is like a spa trip, this.
Hmm.
And sometimes that isn't what actually like rejuvenates you and makes you a better
Yeah.
mom. And the whole point is to get time to yourself so you can show up better. Like, that's, I
Yeah.
guess, to me, what I want self-care to be. I want to feel like I can do all the things and not feel so drained,
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
able to show up for yourself in a way of being like, okay, well, now I need another break, and I need another, and so I think
Yeah.
your point of like loving yourself because you want the best for yourself. So you want to be the best mom and the best partner. And to
Hmm.
do those things, you got to love yourself. And that can look different to
Yeah.
every mom.
Yeah. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm,
And you can put these things in place and get have your spa day and then come back to home and hate it still. You can go and do the things that are what you consider self care practices, but still not feel good.
mm,
Um, what are you really doing to feed your inner self? More than just task and habits. Habits start routines, but habits don't create moments of true healing because you're not connecting to the most intricate parts of yourself. And
yeah.
so, um, you know, it makes every person around you better, knowing when you love yourself, you're able to give your best to everyone, not your children, but your coworkers, your spouse, people who are engaging with you. When you know that you're in a good place, you're able to do the best for everyone around you.
Yeah. I think it's so good. You got to love yourself. Self
Yes,
love
self love,
equals
self
self
love.
care.
Yes, the more self love, the more you'll be doing self care, and the better off everyone will be.
So good. Brandy, I feel so lucky, not only that
Oh,
I got to sit with you, but now that I just know you exist
oh my
and get to
gosh.
have my another Insta friend. I love it.
I know. It is such a beautiful thing connecting to like-minded women through just this phone. I think it is so magical. I think that these connections we would have made in ancient days when we didn't have these gadgets, but it is so beautiful when you can talk to women and connect with them and you haven't even physically saw them, but we're basically like cousins now.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm with it. I'm here for it.
Alright.
Well, Brandy, before you go, there is one last question I ask all my guests, which is,
Uh-huh.
I know you've shared a lot of wisdom, which I hope everyone was taking notes, because I was. Um, what is one piece of advice that you would want to give to all the mamas out there?
Okay, I think this is my mantra and what I've been feeding to everyone around me. I like to use, and I said this in my TED Talk that I did last year, but it's a metaphor, and it's when you're on an airplane and they say practice for a situation that is an emergency. Before you put the oxygen mask on your child, you put it on yourself first. And so before you try to rescue and raise and grow and nourish another human, you first have to save yourself.
Brandy, can we just be best friends? Can you just move to Washington so we can be
Yes.
together? I'm not going to move towards you. You got to come towards me. I like my comfy
I will
little.
come when I am in Washington. I'm going to reach out to you. And until then, we will be instant buddies and I'll be sliding in your DMs.
Okay, good. Perfect. All right, Brandy, honestly, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime. Come back anytime. Thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you're hooked, you can subscribe to this podcast, follow along on social media at The Mama Stories, or visit the website, mamastories.com. And mamas, I love you.